joining us for this Notice of Subaward, or NOSA, and Grant Instructions and Requirements, or GIRS, training. We like to use a lot of acronyms. My name is Julie Linsmith, and I work for the State of Nevada Division of Child and Family Services, DCFS for short, in the Victim Service Unit. We'll talk more about their unit structure later on in the presentation. As Jean said, the presentation will be recorded, so it can be made available on our website later, so you can access it whenever you need or you have new staff. Please remember to keep yourself muted, and please ask questions at any time during the chat box. We will have plenty of time to answer any questions that come up in this training, and we will also send out all the questions that were asked and answers after the training to everyone. So feel free to ask questions. You can ask them either in general, or you can send them to the organizers if you don't want everybody to see your question. So please take a moment now and locate that chat box. If you haven't done so already, please type in your agency name and your name so we know who's in attendance. This is a required training, so at least one person from your agency must have either attended yesterday's training or today's training. So with all that said, let's move on to the agenda. So today we're going to go over the Victim Service Unit, and then we're going to review the Notice of Subaward, or NOSA, and then we'll be reviewing the Grant Instructions and Requirements, or GIRS, and then we'll play a little game called Do You Know Your GIRS? So you'll want to locate that draft GIRS that was attached to the meeting invite so that you can have a good chance of winning a prize during that game. And then we'll go over our contacts. So I'm going to introduce the Victim Service Unit. Most of you know our team, but just want to go over it for those new agencies or new workers. The Victim Service Unit here at DCFS is comprised of a few people. I oversee the program and work with the whole unit to get tasks divided and accomplished. So I currently oversee the Victim Service Grant Management Unit, the Victim Service Compensation Program, and the Confidential Address Program. I have overseen those since Erica left, and we'll see if that stays the same, but currently those are the three programs I'm overseeing. Additionally, I do our federal reporting and grant applications. And then most of you know Jean Booth. She is our grants and project analyst. I'll let her introduce herself and say a little.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this. Like Julie said, I'm Jean Booth. I have been with DCFS as a GPA, the Grants and Projects Analyst, for 4 years. Most of you are very familiar with me. If you're not, you will be very familiar with me by the end of this fiscal year. So thank you so much for attending.
And then very exciting news, we have a new member of our team, which is Christine Holber. She's our new Grants and Projects Analyst. She's currently working on processing our request for reimbursement, and we are slowly training her on all the other GPA duties that Jean knows and does. So you'll be hearing from her and getting emails from her, and we wanted you to know who that was. And we'll give Christine a second to introduce herself. Christine.
Hello, everybody. I'm very excited to be over here on the grant side of things. I've been with DCFS for about 4 years now on the fiscal side of things. So I'm excited to start working with everybody over here that's in the front lines.
Great. Thanks, Christine. We're really excited to have you on our team. And then Tracy Bruce left and went to a different agency at State of Nevada. So we're currently actively recruiting for her position, that management analyst position. So hopefully we'll have that full soon and have another new person to introduce you to. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Jean, who is going to review the Notices of Subaward.
All right, thank you. So we're going to go over each part of the NOSA today. And when we're going over this, we're going to focus mostly on the VOCA award because most of you are VOCA funded, but this does apply to all NOSAs that are issued by our department. The NOSA process, and NOSA means Notice of Subaward. The NOSA process is that we will review your scope of work and your budget for appropriateness and allowability, and then we'll draft the NOSA. This process could take a while depending on the number of corrections that need to be made to the scope of work and budget. We need to ensure that the scope of work and budget are appropriate and include all necessary information to follow grant rules and guidelines and to help reduce amendments throughout the fiscal year. Once the NOSA is drafted, it'll be sent to you for review and signature. It's important to read through this document as this is the basis of your award. Once it's signed by your agency, it needs to be returned to us at the GMU for our signature and administrative approval. Once it's signed by your agency, our staff, and DCFS administration, we'll send the fully executed NOSA to you along with the grant instructions and requirements, GIRS, that we're going to talk about today, your VOCA-specific request for reimbursement or RFR workbook, and your VOCA-specific quarterly reporting workbook. The NOSA has a signature page and then numerous sections and appendices. Now let's go over the sections of the NOSA so that you feel comfortable reviewing them when you receive them. First, let's start with the signature page. This is just the top of it so we can have it at a readable size for you. The bottom of the page will be covered in the next slide. Some important things on this form include your subaward or agency reference number. This is the number that will be referenced for most communications to make sure that we're discussing the correct award. We'll sometimes call this the subaward number, the award number, or agency reference number. They all mean the same thing. The correct award for VOCA this fiscal year, the agency grant number will start with 16575 or 21027. So just make sure you check that when you're discussing the awards with us. Your subrecipient name, this will be what is in our system. You'll need to work with the Secretary of State or the Nevada Comptroller's Office if you need this changed. The address, this will also be what's in our system. Please check this in case a paper check is ever mailed. You will need this information to be correct. The EIN, vendor number, and Dun & Bradstreet number, please verify that these are correct. We are aware that SAM is moving away from the Dun & Bradstreet number, so we're probably going to change that in the next fiscal year, but currently we are still working with the Dun & Bradstreet numbers. If you find that your agency name or address are incorrect, these need to be corrected with the Secretary of State's office and the Nevada Comptroller's Office to be changed on your NOSA. Once those are changed, just let us know and we can make sure that it's updated in our system. The final thing you're going to look at is the approved budget. Please verify that this matches what you submitted. And then you're going to make sure that the award and match amounts are correct. You're going to verify that these match what your notice of funding letter indicated. On this page, if you do have a match waiver, this will be noted next to where it says match required. Next, we're going to talk about the bottom of this NOSA signature page. Please check that your indirect information is correct. It should be 0, 10% de minimis, or your negotiated federal rate. Once you've reviewed all the other sections in this NOSA, you're going to go ahead and print the official person's name and title and have them sign and date this page. All right, next we're going to go ahead and talk about the first section of your NOSA, section A. These are your grant conditions and assurances. You're going to read these. By signing the NOSA, you are agreeing to these. Some assurances in this section covers internal controls, compliance with state insurance requirement, supplanting, subcontracting, civil rights, Americans with disabilities, and compliance for the Title II of the Code of Federal Regulations. There are more assurances, and it is up to your agency to review them prior to signing the NOSA. For Section B, this is the scope of work section that will have been reviewed and discussed by your GPA, most likely me. This section identifies what your agency has agreed to do with the funds provided by DCFS through VOCA funding, or whichever funding you have with our agency. You will be submitting quarterly reports based on these numbers. We did an entire training on how to write your scope of work. If you didn't attend that training, we highly recommend that you watch the recording on our website. Okay, we have a question that says, please explain the previous again. So I believe that's section A. So section A, these are your grant conditions and assurances. These are laws and rules that you have to follow by obtaining a grant with our agency. They're pretty standard, so we just recommend that you read them so that you understand what you're agreeing to when you accept the funds from our agency.
If when you read, you have any questions, reach out to us and we can help explain any of them in more detail for you, but most of them are pretty clear. Sorry,
Yeah.
Dean.
No, you're good. That's a great reminder. Yeah, anytime you have any questions over anything that you're using with our agency, please feel free to reach out because we're here to help you, not make things more difficult. And then I don't know if you needed section B just reiterated, but that's your scope of work. And most agencies will have a back and forth with me, or once Christine gets fully trained, you'll have a back and forth with her about what's allowable and not allowable or what needs to be changed on your scope of work. So this should be a pretty easy to understand section because we should have been able to go over that a couple times with you before actually putting it in the NOSA. Okay, so let's go on to section C. This is your budget and financial reporting requirements. Again, please read these. You are agreeing to them. And please check that the budget matches what you've submitted. Sometimes we go back and forth on the budget, so we need to make sure that you agree with what is in the budget in your NOSA, because that is what your final budget is for this fiscal year. This section stipulates what any printed documents should state if VOCA provides funding for any portion of printed documents, including but not limited to flyers, web pages, brochures, or other printed sources. In section C, you'll find information regarding your budget and the sections within that budget, along with the total amount of your subaward. This should match the total on the signature page. It's important that you read the information in this section. In this section, if you have a federally negotiated indirect rate, that information will be in here. Or if you have a match waiver, that information will also be in here. Section D, this is an example of your request for information, or I'm sorry, your request for reimbursement. This is just a sample of what the page will look like for when you submit your request for reimbursement to us monthly. You don't need to sign the page in the NOSA. You will need to sign it when you do submit your RFRs monthly, but it is not a requirement to sign it for your NOSA. Section E, this is your audit information request. These are required to be filled out, so please make sure you read and fill out these questions. The NOSA cannot be executed until this section is completed. This is very often missed once we send out the NOSA. It's required for agencies receiving VOCA funds to either have an audit or a fiscal review by an independent agency. If the total amount of your agency's federal awards are $750,000 or more, then it's required for you to have a yearly single audit. If it's less than that, we ask that you have a fiscal review by an independent agency. Your section F for your NOSA, this is the notification of utilization of current or former state employees. We often get this filled out no, and then later find out that somebody was a previous state employee recently. Please take the time to think about those employed at your agency prior to completing this. Just because a yes is answered in this section does not disqualify your agency from receiving VOCA funds. We just need to verify that the employee in question is not getting paid for the same position twice. For section H, please verify all the information in the section at the top is accurate. And that's, yes.
You skipped G.
Oh, sorry. G, my apologies. This is your confidentiality addendum. Read this. This section is self-explanatory. You are agreeing that your agency will maintain client confidentiality. Now, section 8, this is your matching funds agreement. Please verify that the information in the section at the top is accurate and the information on the bottom regarding your match budget matches what you submitted. If you have a match waiver, this information will be all zeroed out and a note on this will indicate that you have an approved match waiver. Once you're finished with that, we're going to go to the appendixes. Appendix A This is an assurance in the section that are specific to the VOCA or whichever awards you have. It's up to your agency to read what you're agreeing to prior to signing and returning the NOSA. This particular appendix is your VOCA assurances, and this section will change with the different grants that we fund. Appendix B. In this section, you will read about the VOCA special conditions placed upon the state and all VOCA subrecipients by the Department of Justice, DOJ, and the Office of Justice Programs, OJP. These are the special conditions placed upon VOCA recipients based off of federal audit findings. These special conditions are not only to be followed by the state, but they're also required for any subrecipients we award to follow. Once all of these sections are reviewed, please sign the signatory page of the NOSA, that first page, and return the signed copy of the NOSA to myself, Jean, at jbooth@dcfs.nv.gov. Most of you are very familiar with my email address. It is on the end of this presentation as well. I will finish the NOSA process with our administration and your agency, and we will get you started on your SFY23 VOCA funding year. Are there any questions that we have on the NOSA or anything that we've covered so far today?
Team, we did get one that asked for a copy of the recording to be replayed at any time. And I let everybody know that we'll be sending out the link once it's uploaded to the web, so everybody can access it on our website after this presentation.
Yeah, it usually takes a few days for us to get it posted up on the website, but once it is posted, we will send that notification out to everybody. Do we have any other questions over the NOSA?
That's the only one I've seen so far.
Perfect. Well, let's go into a real quick overview of what are the GIRS. The Division of Child and Family Services, DCFS, Grant Management Unit, GMU, has adopted the Grant Instructions and Requirements, GIRS. We speak in acronyms, so if at any point you have no idea what we're talking about because we're in acronym land, please just stop us and let us know. We're happy to just define the acronym at any time. And we do the GIRS to provide subrecipients with essential information relative to financial and administrative requirements for programs funded through the GMU. The GIRS apply to all subrecipients. The state fiscal year 23 GIRS applies to all grants starting from July 1st, 2022, moving forward. Sections of the GIRS are identified by the term GIR, which is a single provision in the Grant Instructions and Requirements, followed by the last two digits of the state fiscal year and numbered sequentially. For example, when we're defining the GIRS, that would be GIR 23-1. When we're talking about funding source or program codes, all of our grants are listed with their funding source program codes on page 1 of the GIRS. For our purposes over at the Victim Service Unit, we're going to talk mostly about FIPSA, which is Family Violence Prevention Services Act, VOCA, Victims of Crime Act, or Marriage License, which is the Victims of Domestic or Violence or Sexual Violence, also known as Marriage License. Each GIR applies to the grants from all funding sources unless otherwise noted. Each subrecipient is instructed to follow and maintain a copy of the GIRS, which will be verified during program and/or fiscal monitoring. Programs that do not follow the instructions and requirements outlined in the GIRS will jeopardize recipient of funds. We're going to go quickly through an overview of the GIRS. The GIRS are divided into 4 categories: administrative, fiscal, equipment and documents, monitoring, and corrective actions. And while we're not going to read all of the GIRS to you, we're going to go ahead and just briefly talk about what you can find in each section. So for administration, you're going to find that the GIRS are defined, grantor and subrecipients are defined, grantor authority, confidentiality information, controlling documents, subrecipient rights and responsibilities, and information on supplanting. It is your responsibility to make sure that you have read and are following all the GIRS, even if they're not specifically addressed in this training. In GIRS Fiscal, we're going to go over requests for reimbursement instructions, risk designation and resulting monitoring, credit cards, cost sharing or match requirements, cost allocation, direct and indirect costs, allowability and allocability of costs, allowability of specific costs, disbursement of funds, travel reimbursement, single audit or financial opinion, subaward amendments, end-of-year grant instructions, and procedures for processing carryover of funds. And my screen is frozen. There we go. Under equipment and documents, you can find equipment and inventory requirements, special requirements for gift cards, vouchers, and other like items, and retention and disposal of project documents. Finally, under the monitoring and corrective actions section, you're going to find information about the risk assessment, quarterly reports, procedures for fiscal monitoring and administrative review, procedures for program site visits and monitoring, and corrective actions. So we're going to take some time right now to have a fun little game with Julie, and we're going to learn about our GIRS. Do you know your GIRS, and how can you find the answers to them? And we're going to do this in a fun little Jeopardy game. So Julie, take it over.
Great. So everybody, you'll want to have your copy of the draft state fiscal year 23 GIRS available to you, because that's where you're going to get your answers. You're going to want to type your answers into the chat box, and Jean will keep track of who got the answer first and your points. And whoever has the most points at the end of the game will get a prize. So hopefully you guys will compete and learn some about the GIRS and maybe win a fun prize. So because we don't have, I'm going to give everybody a few minutes. If you do not have the GIRS up, please email Jean. She put her email in the chat. She will send it to you. It will really help you. It's also attached to the meeting invite. So please pull up those draft GIRS. And while we're waiting, I just want to give you guys an update. They are just still drafts. We're waiting for administrative approval on them. Once we have administrative approval, they will be finalized. And when you get your fully executed NOSA, we'll send out the fully executed GIRS to you. So that will come out in that email with your fully executed NOSA. So until then, these are just the draft versions. So they may change a little, probably not dramatically though. All right, hopefully everybody has their GIRS in front of them. If you do, please put in the chat, yes, so we know people are ready to start the game. Oh, some fast typers. It's gonna be a good game. All right. Good, it looks like everybody, or a lot of people at least, have theirs ready, so we'll get going. And we're gonna just start, because we don't have a person to start it, we're going to start with Administrative 100. So this GIRS states that planting occurs when a state, local, or tribal government reduces previously allocated or appropriated funds by the entity for an activity specifically because federal funds are available or expected to be available to fund the same activity. Wow, some fast people. So yeah, the correct answer is GIR 23-7, subjects for planting. So that's what the definition of planting is on the screen. And so you just always want to make sure that you're not replacing federal funding with other funding sources you had just because the federal funding became available. You need to be using the federal funding to expand and grow your program instead of replacing other funding with it. All right, who was first, Jean?
That would be Mr. Brian. Brian, what is your choice?
Yeah, please pick a category and a point value.
You'll have to type it into the chat box. Location for 400.
All right. So the GIR that you should read if you have multiple funding sources, including funds outside of what DCFS awarded. Which GIR is that? And I'll tell you, because it's a 400, it's a bit harder, so we might have a little bit longer for people to come up with it. Yeah, so we've got one answer. We'll give people a little bit of time to see if they agree. Let them read. All right, so Megan was the first person I saw answer, and she had the correct answer. It's GIRS 23-12, subject cost allocation. So cost allocation is how you decide how you're splitting your funding across the different funding sources to make sure everything's proportioned based on some logic. So yes, the answer to this one is GIRS 23-12, cost allocation. So Megan, if you want to pick a category and a point value, it'll be fiscal for 300. So the GIRS that states contracts must have be current, signed, and share with the victim service unit. Also includes a list of documentation necessary for RFR submission. Which GIRS is that?
Okay, seen one right answer so far.
Yeah, we got quite a spread on this one. People are kind of guessing across the board. So the correct answer is GIRS 23-8, subject request for reimbursement procedures. So it talks about the contract in that request for reimbursement procedures, and that is GIRS 23-8. So Jean, who was the first one to have the correct answer on that?
That was Dominique.
Dominique, would you like to pick a category and a point value? Location for 200. The GIRS that states all financial reports, supporting documents, statistical reports, and all other reports pertinent to a grant agreement must be retained for a minimum of 3 years. Give people a few minutes to answer so that some of those that are a little bit less quick. Okay, we're starting to get some answers in. I think Brian was the first one I saw with the correct answer. It's GIRS 23-24, subject retention and disposal of project documents. Again, GIRS 23-24, retention of disposal and project documents. Jean, was Brian the first one that you saw with the correct answer also?
Yes.
All right. Brian, you get to pick a category and point value. Monitoring for 200. All right, the risk level determination updates and time of notification to subrecipients from the GMU. Which GIR has that? Wow, quick on this one. All right, so I saw Brian first again, and he is correct. It's GIRS 23-25, subject risk assessment. Yeah, risk level determination is what we call a risk assessment, and you can find it in 23-25. We'll talk about how we do that. Jean, you saw Brian first also?
Yeah, I think Megan had a typo, but yeah, I think I saw Brian at first.
All right. So, Brian, would you like to pick another category and point value? All right. Administration for 300. The Code of Federal Regulations, or CFR, that the GMU has elected to use as a basis for grant administration, regardless of whether the funds are derived from a federal source or a state fund. So we're not looking for a GIR on this one. We're looking for what the CFR is. A little bit different than the other one. What CFR is that? Oh man, we got some quick ones today. This one took forever yesterday for people. So yeah, Brian is correct again first. It's 2 CFR, grants and agreements, the uniform guidance. And you can find the information on that in the GIRS 23-5, which I saw, I think some people posted. Maybe not. Some other GIRS posted, but yeah, it's in 23-5, and it's that 2 CFR 200. And that really regulates how we have to manage our grant. So, Brian, if you want to pick another category and point value. Administrative for 200. This GIRS describes what the way that subrecipients shall collect, maintain, and transmit personal information about services in a manner that ensures security and protects individual privacy. All right, people had answered before I even finished reading. The answer is GIR 23-4, subject confidentiality. So 23-4, subject confidentiality. Jean, I'm going to have to go to you on who was first on that one.
That was Miss Kathleen Tiepner.
Awesome. If you want to pick a category and point value. Administration for 400. This is how long the subrecipient has to notify the GMU regarding any legal action or negative publicity related to grant-funded events, activities, services, purchases, or outreach. And we're not looking for the GIRS here, we're looking for the amount of time. So see a lot of GIRS numbers put in there, but we want to know how much time does a subrecipient have to notify us. What's that GIRS say? All right, we're starting to see some answers come in. I'm seeing 7 days or immediately. The correct answer is immediately. And that means as soon as the subrecipient becomes aware of such legal action or negative publicity. So you're supposed to let us know as soon as you know. So that's an important one. Jean, who was first on that?
That was Mr. Brian.
Oh man, he was fast typer. Brian, you want to pick another category and point value? Fiscal for 200. The GIR that states that any credit card used for subrecipient purchases for expenses must be a credit card issued to the subrecipient, not an employee of the subrecipient. Oh my gosh, there's all sorts of stuff already. So the answer is GIRS 23-10, subject credit cards. Again, GIRS 23-10, subject credit cards. Jean, who was first on that?
That was Miss Jill Faber.
All right, Jill, pick a category and a point value for us. Fiscal for 400. The last day to submit a subaward amendment. Again, what is the actual date? We're not looking for the GIR on this one. We're looking for what is the last day to submit a subaward amendment. All right, so the answer is the last Friday of April, which this year was April 30th. So I'm going to let Jean make a judgment call on who was first on and what we'll accept. But this information can be found in GIRS 23-20, subject end of grant year instructions. It also can be found in GIRS 23-19, number 9. So it's in the GIRS a lot. It's repeated in there. Again, it's the last Friday of April. Jean, who was first and what answer are we going to accept?
I'm going to accept the last Friday in April, and that was Miss Cassandra Kobos.
All right. Cassandra, you want to pick a category and a point value for us? Oh, thank you, Jill. I was wrong. It was the 29th this year. I don't even know what's happened. Yeah, Saturday was the 30th, huh? Okay, location for 300. The GIR that explains carryover and the final RFR process for the end of the grant. So what GIR explains carryover and the final RFR process for the end of the grant? Seems like we got a lot of different answers, or at least three. I see 19, 20, and 21. So the correct answer is GIR 23-20, subject, end of the year instructions. It's number 5 in there. So Jean, who was first with GIR-20?
We got it back to Brian.
All right. So Brian, go ahead and pick a category and point value. Monitoring for 300. The 4 types of adverse findings identified in the GIRS. So we're looking for the actual types, not the GIRS, but what type of adverse findings are identified in the GIRS? What are the 4 types? This one take a little longer, a little more to type than just that and some numbers.
We've had some nice competition today.
Yeah, really appreciate everybody participating. Hopefully you guys are finding this fun. It'll be close to see who wins. There's some high point value ones left. Okay, so we got one answer in. Let's give people a few more minutes, or not minutes, seconds to type their answers before we tell what the answer is. I guess Brian's the only one who wanted to answer this one or has been able to, so we'll go ahead. It is found in GIRS 23-27, number 6, subject procedures for fiscal monitoring and administrative review of external audits. And the 4 listed findings are 1, lack of adequate records, 2, administrative findings, 3, question costs, and 4, costs recommended for disallowance. So lack of adequate records, administrative findings, question costs, and costs recommended for disallowance. So Brian, go ahead and pick another category and point value. Monitoring for 400. The minimum written notification a subrecipient will receive prior to scheduling of fiscal monitoring. How long will we let you know before we schedule a fiscal monitoring? What's the minimum written notification you'll get? All right, seeing some answers come in. Yeah, so the correct answer is 15 working days, and that's in GIRS 23-27, subject procedures for fiscal monitoring and administrative review of external audits. So 15 working days will let you know. I think Megan was first on that. Jean, was I correct?
That is correct.
All right, go ahead and pick a category, and it'll be a point value 100. Fiscal for 100. The GIRS that talks about requests for reimbursement requirements based off risk level. Which GIRS talks about requests for reimbursement requirements based off risk level? We've got 2 different answers. Oh, 3 different answers now in the chat. Yeah, risk level is a different GIRS. The answer is GIRS 23-9, subject request for reimbursement procedures. So that GIRS will let you know what documentation you have to submit based off your risk level. So it doesn't talk about how the risk levels are determined, but what documentation you have to submit based on your risk level. So 23-9. Jean, who was first with that one?
That would be Miss Jill.
All right, Jill, pick a category for 100. Monitoring. The GIRS that outlines the procedures for program site visits and monitoring. All right, the correct answer for that is GIRS 23-28, and for some reason I didn't write the subject name of that one down, but yeah, 23-28 is the correct one to find the procedures for program site visits and monitoring. And I was Jill first on that one too, Jean?
She was.
Well, we'll go for a location for 100 though, because there's no choice. The date that programmatic and scope of work quarterly reports are required to be submitted to the GMU. What is the GIRS that has that? What is the date? Yeah, so I'm seeing some answers come in. The answer is GIRS 23-26, subject quarterly reports, and they're due the 15th of the month following the quarter being reported. So they're due the 15th of the month following the quarter, so it'd be January, or wait, the first one is due October 15th, then January 15th, then April 15th, and then July 15th. But yeah, the 15th of the month following the, and it's in 23-26. We're going to give Jean a few seconds to, or minutes to total the scores and let us know who won. But in the meantime, does anybody have any questions on what anything in the GIRS or anything we've gone over on NOSAs or GIRS? Any questions?
I haven't seen any questions pop up.
All right. Ian, do you have the totals or do you need a moment?
I do have the total. Brian won the game with 1,800 points. Megan was real close at 800 points, and Cassandra was right behind her with 500 points. So congratulations, Brian.
Yeah. Thank you all. And then Jean, do you have Brian's email?
I do.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all so much for participating. I hope you guys found it fun and educational. We're still available for any questions if you have. You can utilize the chat box. I want to put up our contact information. You can always send general questions to DCFS grants. We all have access to that. Or you can send them to Jean or myself. RFRs are submitted to that fund request inbox that's there. And I don't know why we don't have the correct phone number for Christine. That is not her actual phone number. Please don't dial 688 all zeros. You will not reach Christine, but we'll get you her contact info if you need it. But best bet right now is Jean or myself or that general inbox, because we're still training Christine. But thank you again for joining. Jean, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I just would kind of like to do a real quick, brief question for everyone who joined us. Do you guys like this format with the Jeopardy game, or would you prefer having more detail explained on the GIRS in a lot more discussion? Okay, it looks like everybody really enjoyed the game today. Okay. All right, well, thank you all for joining us, and we will give you back the last 45 minutes of your day. Thank you so much.